We want to be clear, absolutely. But just as important as being clear is being consistent.
Welcome to Seven Figure Copy, the show where we refine your messaging so it reflects the level you're now operating at with clarity and confidence. I'm Gina Whitehouse, your expert conversion copywriter, and this podcast is for established, expert-led female business owners who know their work is exceptional but suspect their website and sales copy may be underselling the caliber of what they deliver. In each episode, we'll explore how strategic, ethical copy elevates your website, sales pages, and core messaging so your words communicate trust before someone ever books a consult or starts a conversation with you. If you're ready for a trusted partner who helps you clearly articulate what you do and why it matters, then you're in the right place. Hey, everybody. I'm very, very, very excited you are here with me today because I am bringing on a special guest. But before I tell you who that is, thank you for joining me. My name is Gina Whitehouse. I am your expert conversion copywriter, messaging strategist, and host of the Seven Figure Copy podcast. So who am I bringing on today? Well, let's just say this. Most people think that trust is built after the sale, but in reality, it starts long before that, and how clearly you communicate what you do, how you do it, and why it matters. So that's why today's episode is a little different. I am actually joined by my husband, Caleb Whitehouse, and he is an insurance underwriter with over 20 years of experience in commercial underwriting, specializing in complex, high-risk accounts most people don't know how to handle. He's also been very deeply involved in shaping his company's culture by building relationships, developing people, and creating an experience that keeps clients coming back and referring others. And what's really interesting is that his industry doesn't rely on traditional marketing the way that most businesses do. But everything he's built still comes down to trust, clarity, and how he communicates with clients. So in this episode, we are actually going to talk about a couple different things. We're going to talk about what actually builds trust with your clients and customers. We're going to talk about the client experience and how it drives long-term growth. And we're going to talk about why the way you communicate your value matters more than most people realize. So I'm excited you're joining us today and listen in on the conversation. Hey, Caleb, I'm so glad you're joining me today.
Hi, Gina. You feel so close, like we're in the same house or something.
Well, everybody listening today, this is a special episode. I'm excited because I brought my husband, Caleb Whitehouse, to the podcast, and I wanted to bring him on here for a while so he could share some of his wisdom with you. And yes, I am upstairs right now recording in our guest room, and he is downstairs in his office, and we actually both work from home. So this worked out perfectly. So I'm so glad you can join me today and talk with our listeners.
Well, it's my pleasure. And as you can see, my office, I guess you could call it an office. Yeah, it's all here. There you go. One big nerd.
Well, for those of you that are just listening, you know, if you're like in the car or something or you're at home, you can't see his office, but the background is all Star Wars stuff. And if you see one of these clips on social media, then you probably will see what his office looks like. So, Caleb, why don't you tell our listeners just briefly what you do? I did give an intro, so those of you listening have already kind of heard it, but I want them to hear it from you. What do you do? What's your business? Tell us about it.
Oh, it's terribly exciting. I work as an insurance wholesale intermediary. And for the uninitiated, really all that means is that I work as a go-between for retail insurance agents and insurance carriers trying to find coverage, forms, term, rate for very difficult to place risks. Companies that I've done business for, or at least tried to place insurance on behalf of, or we'll just say some large major energy drink companies, as well as some online retail platforms and things of that nature. So difficult stuff.
Okay. Let me see. I want to ask you next. Just tell us, how long have you been doing this for?
The answer that comes to mind is too long, but I've been doing this for about 25 years now, and it pays the bills, so I can't complain.
All right, good. Now, the reason why I want to bring you on is because, well, we've known each other this year, actually. It is, 2026. This will be 20 years since we were on our first date.
Hooray! Happy anniversary.
Yes.
Happy
20
anniversary.
Years since our first date on November 1st, 2006. I got to get all my years right. We got married in 2008. So ever since I've known you, you have been working in this industry and you have a lot of wisdom and you've given me a lot of wisdom as I've built my business over the years, my copywriting business and actually previous businesses that I've had. So I wanted to bring you on and I wanted to talk about a couple of different things. And yes, we are going to tie this back to messaging by the time we are done. So the first question I have for you is, at what point in your career did you realize that saying yes to everything was actually holding you back?
It was probably within the first 5 years of working. I didn't have a lot of mentors. I didn't have a lot of direction. They pretty much just said, hey, work with anybody that nobody else is working with and let her rip, right? And so my whole goal was to just get as much business onto the books as possible. And that meant going to everybody everywhere. But there came a point where I hit, I guess you could say, this delta between time and energy and resources. I guess that's more than two, but I've never been good at counting. Not a good thing to do while you work in insurance. However, I realized that there was definitely a point where I wasn't maximizing what I was doing. And part of that was due to the fact that I was saying yes to certain things that I should no longer say yes to. You know, when you're scaling up, when you're building up, when you're ramping up, you know, you got to take a lot of stuff in to try to build your business. But you've got to get to the point where you can be more discriminate on what you're allowing into your business. And that's what I had to do. At one point, I finally said, and I believe actually it was when I had decided, my partners and I decided to move and build our own company, is that I had a book of 150 clients. And I didn't tell 75% of them that I left. And I actually did more business with that 25% of clients than I did with that full book of 100 clients. And that was because I was saying yes to way too much stuff.
That's really interesting. So most of the women who are listening to this episode right now, they are established business owners. Okay. And let me ask you, why do you think that so many business owners, especially the successful ones, the ones that have been in business for a couple of years, why do you think they struggle to say no, even when something clearly isn't the right fit?
Well, I think that there are a few answers to that. And the reason I can answer this is because I've done all of them. I'm guilty of all of them. I think we have the FOMO, right? You know, the fear of missing out on if I say no to this account, I'm missing out on business. We assume that it's going to be a guaranteed sell or it's going to be a guaranteed yes, right? And if I don't say yes to this on my end of it, then I'm missing out in some way, shape, or form. I mean, that's part of it, right? I think another part of it is that, you know, it's funny. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and no is a complete sentence. I thought that was fantastic, and it's something that's burned into my mind. And now my daughter has said it to me today and reminded me, and she's a little wiseacre. I don't know where she gets that from. Anyway,
You.
Yeah, exactly. But I think for most people, I would say we're people pleasers, right? We don't like to say no because saying no means we're the bad guy or the bad girl or whomever you are. So saying no means that we have this something in our mind that thinks we're going to be letting somebody down, that we're going to be disappointing them, right? And we have to break beyond being a people pleaser and finding out what's going to get the job done for us as a business owner.
That's good. I know that I have fallen into that people pleasing thing. And as you know, you're smiling right now. It's been something I've been dealing with my whole life, trying not to people please, right? It is. And even when I first started my business, you know, I did what you did, right? I took every single client that came my way for a couple of different reasons. One was because, well, I have a long-term vision. I knew that this, you know, when I started my copywriting business, that it wasn't going to just blow up in a year, right? I think it was even you who told me that it takes about 3 years for a business to get really established, right? And so we need to have that long-term vision. So with that long-term vision, I just said for the first year, I would take anything that came my way because I wanted to really get to a place after a year where I knew exactly who I wanted to work with and who I didn't want to work with and what type of projects I wanted to take on and which ones I didn't. So I know for me that saying yes, was one of the ways that I got my business started. But after that year, that's when I really niched down and decided to mainly work with established female business owners because it's really what I really enjoyed the most. And I learned too that taking the wrong clients on wasn't going to do me any good. And it wasn't going to do them any good, right? because I want to be the best, conversion copywriter for the person that I'm working with. And I've turned down people because I knew that I wasn't maybe aligned with what they were doing, or I wasn't the right person, or that I wasn't going to be able to write without a bias. So sometimes, and going back to that people pleasing thing, I've gotten kind of nervous in a few situations where I actually had to tell them, you know what, I'm sorry, I can't work with you. But I have to say that every time I've done that, 100% of the time, I have not gotten the reaction that I thought that I was going to get. I was so scared that someone was going to be mad at me, right? But every person has come back and they've said, thank you, Gina. Like, I really respect that you have said no. And then I usually try to match them with another copywriter. But in the long run, I know, sometimes that if I take the wrong client on too, that it's going to take up a lot of time. If it's not the right fit, then I'm spending my energy in the wrong place. And I think just having this discussion about attracting the right people into our business is important, because we all want to use our time wisely. Wouldn't you say that?
Absolutely. And I like that, there's a power in saying no, but there's, the other thing that I like is also when we have to say no, but we can offer an alternative, right? Like you did, you align them with a particular customer. There may be certain businesses or certain lines of business that are out of my wheelhouse. And I go, listen, I appreciate the effort. I appreciate you coming to me. However, I'm not the guy for this type of risk. I can refer you to somebody who is a pro, who's going to give you the best experience. Because if I give you my experience, I want it to be top notch. And I can't do that for you with what you're asking of me.
Right.
And in doing so, you gain actually more respect instead of trying to hoard everything to yourself and making it a zero-sum game. Either I get it all, and nobody else gets anything. Sometimes, building that network of people and referring people over to others is actually better for your business than saying yes to everything.
Yeah, no, I agree. And another thing I wanted to touch on too is finding the right clients also that value what you do. So let me ask you, what changes when you start working with people who already value what you do instead of having to convince them to work with you?
What changes? Business flows faster, smoother. I think I have a better profit margin when I work with people that already value what I do, instead of having to constantly explain over and over again to certain individuals the whys. They understand. I understand. I have this phrase that I use, which is my broker fee, like my time, is non-refundable. And some people go, that's kind of cold and heartless, and I go, no. It's what I'm bringing to the table is offering you value more than you're going to get from perhaps my competition, right? And when you're working with people that trust you, for me, it's perhaps much different for your listeners, but for me, there's not nearly as much negotiation and hemming and hawing and trying to get me down on every dollar. And there's just a sense of appreciation for the product that we bring to the table. And again, so that's actually going to make your business even more profitable. Instead of everybody looking for the best deal, or they go, I'm getting what I'm paying for out of this individual.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I may be jumping the gun a little bit here. I have a list of questions here to ask you, and maybe I'm going to be jumping a little bit ahead. I don't know, but this is a good little tangent here. And I'm just going to tie this right into your messaging for a business, right? When someone goes, to those of you listening, when someone goes to your website and they read your homepage, or they read your about page, your services page, or they go to your sales page for whatever signature offer you have, product or service, you want them to clearly know right away what it is you do and the value of what you do. And I could have a whole other podcast about this, so I won't go too much into it. And I've probably talked about this throughout this season a lot. But the goal is when someone hits that button to, let's say, book a 30-minute call with you, that they should already understand the value of what you do from reading the copy on the page, right? And just like you said, Caleb, that you don't want to be convincing anybody. And when people already understand the value, by the time they get on the phone with you, they're just checking you out to see if like you guys have the right vibes, like if you are aligned with each other, if you're someone that they want to work with. And when it is, they're more willing to pay, like you said, Caleb, your fees, but to the listener here, they're more willing to pay your prices, even if your prices are premium pricing and they're higher than your competition. They're more open to paying for the value that you're willing to give them because they clearly understand before they've even talked to you. They've read your copy and your messaging. They clearly understand exactly what you do and how you're going to solve that problem for them.
Mm-hmm.
So, you following me here?
I'm following you.
You're like, I know what you're thinking.
Actually,
you're like,
technically,
Gina?
I'm following you. I'm following you because you're up there somewhere on the second story.
Anyways, no, I know you understand. And let me go into the next question because it kind of transitions into this a little bit. So, a lot of business owners, they hit a point where they start blending in. Okay, so they're saying similar things or they're offering similar services, and as their competitors, let's say, and it becomes hard to stand out. So from your perspective, what happens when someone tries to be everything to everyone?
Well, when they try to be everything to everyone, they become nothing to everyone, right? In my business, we have different, we'll just say different people that do it different ways. We have generalists, we have specialists. But I find that those who are the expert in their field, like if you've ever read Neil Rackham's Spin Selling, great book. We had a great course with him. He actually was one of our investors in one of our companies. He sat down and gave us an hour-long breakdown of the entire book, which we found out that he does at like grad schools and, for $50,000-$60,000. I'm like, my gosh, this is amazing. And we got a private, there's like 10 of us in the room. We got this private time with him. It was really, really cool. But that we don't sell our product. In his book, in essence, it says, you're not selling a rat trap. You're becoming a rat consultant, right? So to speak. I mean,
yeah.
But that we become more than just trying to push our product, but that we're solving their issues, right? At my title in business, it's interesting. A lot of people are vice presidents of this and that, and senior vice presidents and executives and managing directors, and that's all good and fine, but that really doesn't tell anybody what you do. I've had on my business card for the last, 15 years. My title is Master of Solutions. And when I go in and I sit down with the CEO of a very large company, and I'm not coming in there with my vice president's card, but I'm coming in there and they look at the Master of Solutions, and it's probably about a 75-25 split, where when I go in there with that, 75% of the people really dig it. And then 25% of the people kind of scoff at it, which is great because it's a litmus test for me. And I go, I want to work with that 75%, the people that get it, because that's how I think. The other 25% that are so bent on title and position and stance, I'm not like that. I'm not a hippie when it comes to insurance, if you will, but I am definitely not the button down, like, hey, let's all wear our hush puppies and sit around and talk about, fine wines and our yachts. I'm not that guy, but there are people that are that. I'm like, that's cool. Do that. But that's not me, but those other people I'll align with. So when that messaging, is specific and they grab hold of it, then you've got a great match there. And then you can run full steam ahead. Right. So perhaps that was a roundabout way of answering your question, but when we decide, okay, well, cool, bonus points. I'll give myself a chocolate chip cookie after we're done here.
What were you going to say? You were saying when we decide.
Oh, no, I was just saying when we decide to differentiate ourselves, whether it be with a specific product or a specific way we deliver, right? Or a specific messaging that I don't want that. Or I can do that, but I'd rather do this for you because that's what I do very well. I find it's just people grab hold of that, right? They want, we've got a world that we got a million choices in the world, but when you say I do this, and then they don't have decision fatigue. They just come after you and they go, great, I want to do this specific thing with you. Great.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that just kind of goes back to what I said too, is, what you put out there is what you want to attract, which, okay, I'm jumping ahead too, as I've got that in here. But you're right. The messaging you put out there, it's going to attract or repel the people that you want to work with, right? That you want to align with. I think where I wanted to go with this is kind of talking about what happens kind of also when you really like niche down. So you've built your career by leaning into the things that most people don't want to handle. How do you think owning that actually made you more valuable instead of limiting you?
Well, with that, and this is, I train people all the time, right? And in our
Yeah.
market and in what I do in insurance, I know, exciting. If you ever want, we could do a whole podcast on insurance, and
No, it's okay.
it'd be the driest 30 minutes of anybody's life. But when I'm training people, I say, write the hard stuff, do the hard things, write the stuff that your competitors won't do or can't figure out how to do, because at the end of the day, that is the stuff that sticks, right? And I found that in my book of business, people value that because they want somebody who's going to be a problem solver. Again, master solutions. That's my title. Trademark. Nobody take that. Who's listening to this podcast? No, that's fine. Use it. It's great. But what it does is it shows to my clientele that I'm willing to do more than my competitors. I'm willing to think outside of the box. I'm willing to find an answer for very difficult questions, if you will, right? And in doing so, if I'm faithful with the very difficult things, then my clients also send me the simple things, right?
That's true. Yeah.
It's kind of a biblical principle, to those who've been faithful with the little will give you much, right? And so in this way, I've been faithful with some very difficult problems for people and solving those problems. And then they go, great, thank you so much for doing that. So what I have over here should be no problem for you. And the answer is yes. I actually had that with one client that I brought on who was a referral, and their first 5 or 6 accounts were just hard. And I've been doing this a long time, and they were very difficult tasks. But I got them done. We got them quoted, bound, issued, policies in place, everything taken care of. And they said, "Oh, we just came into this book of X." I don't want to get specific because it's a small
you don't have to.
But that portion of the book is now 20 times the amount of what I did on those 5 difficult risks, right? It churns over. It's impressive how it happens. So I think that would let you know, more value. If they trust you for the tough things, they're going to trust you for the easy things too. I think it's the short answer to a very long response that I gave. I do apologize.
If you've ever thought, my business has evolved, but my website still feels pieced together, or my expertise is strong, but my messaging doesn't reflect the level I operate at, I want you to know right now that you're not alone. Every established business owner reaches this point where your growth just outpaces your message. And when your message doesn't match the offer or the service you provide now, it costs you credibility, clarity, and premium opportunities. So I'm here today to tell you that I want to help you go from second guessing how you're presenting your offers and expertise to showing up online with messaging that feels cohesive and aligned with the caliber of your work. Today, I'm inviting you to book a 30-minute complimentary copy chat with me to determine whether you need a strategic copy audit or high converting done for you copy that finally reflects the level you're operating at. Go to the show notes today to book your call or visit www.whitehousesm.com. No, it's okay. It's good. There's so many things you touched on there, and I can go in so many different tangents and avenues. Like my wheels are turning a lot right now, and I think this just comes down to a lot, how to distinguish yourself from your competitors. And again, I can go in so many different directions, but one of the things you said is trust, right? And so being an honest person, if I can say this right, integritous, being integritous, having integrity, right?
Work with integrity. Yeah.
Work with integrity, being honest, being clear about what you're offering. So right now, you don't really work in the online space like I do. You're on your own insurance world, but in my world, and from talking from a lot of my clients, is that there's just what we would call a trust recession right now. So, you and I didn't really experience this because you're insurance, and I was doing something a little different here. But in 2020, with COVID and everything shut down, that's what everybody was at home, and now everyone was going online to start businesses or start selling products and things. And people were selling like a lot of courses and things like that were making all the promises. But what happened was everything was selling really easily. So people were putting stuff out there, and a lot of it was just junk. Right. So over the years now, we're in 2026. The last 2 years, it's been really hard for online business owners because people have stopped buying as much because they've become very discerning and they don't want to be duped again. right? So in a lot of the copy that I've written for my clients, we've had to put a lot of assurance into the copy, into the messaging, saying that, that we're different, right? That my client's different, that if you've tried everything, like I promise you that this is going to work. Like there's a lot of different ways to bring this into your messaging. But it's been something that we've, that I've had to add in there to build trust with that customer that lands on that sales page, let's say. Anyway, so now I'm losing my train of thought. We're talking about trust and honesty and integrity, right? So this is, like, I'm talking to you listeners right now. This is one way, a simple way that you can distinguish yourselves, from your competition. Or I don't even like to say the competition, like the people who do similar things than you, right? Because we live in a world now, in your field, we live in a world now where no longer are you just competing with the person who lives in your locale, like in your city, but you're really competing against the entire world, like, all the people in the entire world that do the same thing you do, because we're also interconnected. And gosh, what else did I want to say about that? We were talking about how, you, Caleb, work in a very specific niche, right? You are an underwriter, an insurance underwriter, but you do even business underwriting, right? I know I'm saying this wrong right now because I'm put on the spot. But you're a commercial business underwriter, commercial, right? You do it for businesses commercially. But even within that, you do the tough things, right? The tough things you're saying that other people can't write for. And when you do a good job for them, especially, then they come back for repeat. They give you repeat business. So I just think going back to that idea that when we do good things for good, when we do good work for people, that they come back and then they bring you all the other stuff too, like you mentioned.
Correct. And so if we set those, go ahead.
No, you talk. Go.
I was just going to say, because you had mentioned messaging, which I think is very important. And if we are clearly communicating from the very beginning, then you can set expectations.
Yeah.
You can give them, I guess you could say, the understanding of the results that you're going to deliver, right? And when you do what you're going to say you're going to do, and you deliver it in the time frame that you're going to deliver it in, and let's just say, be honest, it's doing your job, you're going to be light years ahead of most of the workforce out there, right? Because a lot of people say yes and they don't deliver, and it drives me up the wall. I have that experience with, I represent many different insurance carriers, and some are like, yeah, I'll get that back to you today. And some are like, it's going to take me 3 days. And if I don't get if I don't get the terms back I need in the same day from the person who said it's going to come back today, and I got to follow up 3 or 4 times, I get a little upset, right? Because I've got timelines and things that I've set up. But if somebody says it's going to take 3 days and they deliver in 3 days, they may not be the fastest, but by golly, they've delivered as they've promised. And I respect that. I respect that tremendously.
Yeah. And that's just a little quirk about you and I too, though, is that we like to be people who, when we say yes, our yes is our yes and our no is our no. And you and I get really frustrated when people don't do that.
And that's why I don't always say yes, right? It's one of those things that you and I have talked about, that we have had to learn over the years to say no, even to really good things sometimes, where the reason I'll say no is because I'm like, I can't deliver the way that I want to deliver, or I can't give you and I are talking outside of this right now about an opportunity that has come up in my life to do something really big, but knowing the amount of time that I have and the amount of energy and the resources and scheduling and everything else, I'm leaning to say no to this particular opportunity because I wouldn't do a good enough job.
Yeah.
And so, that translates to any business. That translates to any business. If you're hired to come and do, we want you to come and do a speaking engagement. Yeah, but your calendar's already packed, but you say yes, and then you wear yourself out trying to get there. And then you're not giving your A game. And we've got to always be giving our A game to be better than our competition. So, and I'm very competitive in that manner. So sometimes the competitive nature in me is telling me to say no, which is very strange. Which is counterintuitive.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit. It's still kind of on the same thing we're talking about here, but just so a little bit of background for you guys. So yes, Caleb is an insurance underwriter, and I am a conversion copywriter and messaging strategist. And that's our daytime gig, right? So what would you say is, why don't you explain what our nighttime gig is?
Oh, our nighttime gig. Cool. That's right. Well, we're secret agents. No, that would be
No.
really cool. No, actually, I always joke. I say my day gig pays for my night gig, and my wife and I have a small. It's not small. It's just we just have a church ministry here in town. We have a church. Long story short, we have a church, and we welcome everybody in. And it's a very simple format, and our heart is to get people just out in the community talking about Jesus. Plain and simple, right? I mean, we don't have a lot of frills, but people aren't brought in with a lot of frills. Right? I say this is what we do. This is how we do it. We sing songs to the Lord. I preach from the Bible. We pray for people at the end, and if people have need, then we give. That's pretty much our whole format. We don't have dads with daughters with waffles that like to have beards on Thursday club. That's not who we are, and that's okay because simple. There are places like that, and for those people that are desiring that, fantastic. But we're upfront about that. It's like that's not who we are, and that's okay. Yeah. It's okay to explain your identity to someone,
right? Because when people understand what we are, we tell them what we are, then they can either accept it or not, and they come and they don't expect the frills because we don't have the frills, and it's not like we're inviting them over with all the frills, and then we take them away, and then they all leave because they were promised the frills, which goes right into the question. So,
how about that? It's not like I had the same questions over here.
So one thing we talk about a lot, both in business and in ministry, is that what you bring people in with is what you have to keep them with. So what does that actually look like in real life? So let me just give an example, because we'll talk about it personally, and then we can talk about it in business and how this applies. All right. So personally, I always like to use, I'll use two examples. The first one is a ministry, right? Because that's what we do. And, what you promise people, let me give you an example. If you tell someone, well, once you give your life to Jesus, then you're going to have a happy life. Well, what's going to happen when things start to go wrong? Because no matter what you believe, you have life, and things are not always going to be joyful and cheery. There are going to be things that happen, right? So what happens when we bring people in under those assumptions? Well, what happens is when something hard comes their way, then they turn away from the church and they leave because they say, well, you promised me this. But that's not actually, we didn't really promise them the right thing, right? We attracted them with something, but then something happened in their life, and they're like, no, that's, you promised me this, but no, I'm leaving. Same thing like in the workplace, right? So if you invited someone into the workplace and you said, if you work at this company, you get unlimited vacation. And then suddenly, let's say there's a new boss that comes in and they say, no, now everybody only gets 2 weeks vacation. Then you're going to have people that are really ticked off, right? Because they came under the premise that, well, yeah, I'm going to take this job because I get unlimited vacation, right? So what do you think about this, Caleb?
Yeah. It's a principle that I live by. What you bring them in with, or what you hire them with, is what you got to keep them with. And it's a conversation I actually had today with our finance team. Was that they're talking about, recruiting people, and they're like, oh, we can pay just as good as anybody else. And I'm like, great. What are our intrinsic motivators for bringing people in? Because money is good to a point, but there's going to be a point where somebody's going to offer more. And so if they're here strictly for the money, then they're a hired hand, and they're here for a limited time until somebody offers them a bigger paycheck, right? It's going to be other things, perhaps not non-quantifiables, that I like to bring people in. Yeah, in our former company, I was the chief culture officer as well as producing and other things. And it was like, okay, well, what certain things do we do here that differentiate ourselves, that people that we want to work with are drawn to, right? And, there was more of that kind of the unlimited vacation stuff, but there was a more of a, this hands off, let you run your own business the way that you want, this entrepreneurship, no management, no HR. I mean, it was very flat level, right? And a lot of people, including myself, really dug that because, when you hire good people, let them do good stuff and get out of the way, really good people are going to flourish. Absolutely. Like with my clients, if I were to say, I'm always going to be the cheapest, I'm always going to be the fastest, I'm always going to be this, right? Well, then when I'm not the cheapest, or when I don't always come down on my fee or my pricing or whatever, and I don't do that, if they left you for $1, they're going to leave you, if they left the other client for $1, they're going to leave you for a dime, right? So
Yeah.
how they come in as your client is also going to be how they leave, right? So if you come and go, oh, I had this terrible experience with, just whatever, let's just say your industry, right? Oh, I had this terrible experience with this copywriter, and they couldn't do this and they couldn't do that, and I just was really upset at them. And well, did you talk to them about it? No, I didn't talk to them about it. I was just so mad, I just refused to talk to them anymore. Well, did you guys set? No, we didn't set expectations. We didn't discuss the issues. Well, what's going to happen is that they're going to do the same thing to you. And so those are always red flags. Same thing with church, right? Okay, well, some folks will come in and be like, yeah, I want to join your church. I'm like, great. Well, where were you going before? And we get an answer like, well, why did you decide to leave? Did you talk to them about it before you left? Because, for me and for you, church is family, right? Yeah. And so I don't know about you, but if I have a disagreement with my family, I'm going to talk to them about it first before I decide I'm not talking to you. You're out, right? So we have that issue, and it's like, okay, well, did you talk to your pastor or the elders or deacons or whomever the structure is over there? No, I didn't talk to them. I'm like, well, go talk to them. At least make peace with them if you're going to leave, because if you don't, they're going to do the exact same thing. Again, when they're offended or they're hurt or they're upset, they're not going to discuss it and try to work it out. They're just going to bolt, right?
Yes.
So, and that's a little off the topic, but it's in the same realm. Yeah, no, it's in the same realm, because these are the experiences, right? Why do you leave? I was upset. Well, did you deal with it? No, I didn't. Well, then you're going to probably leave. You're probably going to leave here upset too, because you're not dealing with it here either. So whatever.
Yeah,
so, these are the challenges of life and work and ministry and everything.
They are, but we'll bring it back. I'll bring it back in here. We're reeling it back in. I think when it comes down to it, it just comes down to being clear, right? It comes down to being clear about what you offer, what you do and do not do. In fact, in a lot of the sales pages I write, I always recommend, it's kind of an optional section, but I always recommend having a section down the sales page that says who this is for and who this is not for. Mm-hmm. So that we can be really clear that, okay, this product, service, or offer, it is for this type of person. And this is where we want to be really blunt about it, very clear. And it's not for this type of person. For my clients that do group programs, they're very adamant. This is not for the person who wants a quick result. We'll put in there, we'll say, you have to be willing to do the work, right? So just being clear, and not trying to skirt around things, and just knowing that the message that you put out there is going to attract that certain type of person. So you better know from the beginning who it is you want to attract and who you want to work with. And I would even go, I'll just be really blunt, here, you want to know this before you sit down and work with a copywriter. Because when you work with a copywriter, a conversion copywriter like myself, you're investing a good amount of money. And it's an amount of money that you're investing that is supposed to pay for itself, because that copy's supposed to make sales for you, right? So in the long haul, it really doesn't cost you anything. But before you work with me, anybody listening, you want to know exactly what your offer is. You don't want to be figuring it out while we're working together, right? You have to know exactly what your offer is, and you need to know exactly who it's for. Because if not, then you end up investing in, working with a copywriter or someone in your business. And then perhaps a month later, you decide, no, I don't want to work with that person, or I don't want to work with that target audience. I'm not selling to that target audience, right? So you've already invested all this money, and now you're changing paths, and that's no good. So back to what I was saying, we want to be clear in the beginning. We want to know exactly who we want to work with so we can attract that right type of person, because that's what the copy is meant to do. It's meant to qualify people and then lead them on that journey to say, yes, I want to buy from you. All right.
Well, I think there's a parallel, if I may just say, say you want to be clear. Absolutely. But just as important as being clear is being consistent, right?
Yeah.
And if you can't be consistent then your clearness or your clear message is going to get muddy, right? Because then that's going to roll. We'll wait until the next question, because I think it's going to roll right into what we want to talk about next.
What happens when there's a gap between what someone thought they were signing up for and what they actually experience?
I could either go the short answer or the long answer, but at the end of the day, their trust is lost, right?
Yeah.
They feel they've been duped, they've been hoodwinked, or maybe even they feel that they've been fooled in some way, or that they personally feel kind of stupid, right? That they didn't pick up on it. All of those things at one of those things, or all of those things.
I felt that way.
Yeah. Where I'm like, I didn't read the rest of it or the fine print, but I think that comes back to the clarity, right? Setting those expectations, laying it out as much as you can. I find, most of my communication is done through email, and I've had to learn to
that can be hard.
It's hard because, our intention in email, sometimes I just have to pick up the phone and be like, listen, I got to talk to you about this, because it comes over verbally, it's going to come over a lot differently than written, but
a different tone.
I have to be extremely precise on my messaging, and not even what I say, but also how I say it. And depending on the client, because some clients are going to respond to just direct fact. Some clients are going to respond to the facts, but brought in with, more of we'll just say more engaging on the human side of it. And you just got to be extremely clear. That way you can always point back to it, should there be a gap between expectation and results.
Yeah. And what you just touched on a little bit is about, this is what I heard. You may not have been talking about this, but what I picked up from it is that your different clients, and how they need to be spoken to, right? Because some of them just want the facts. Some of them want to chat and have a conversation with you. But I think it just goes back to the fact that those of you listening, you have to know your clients really well. You have to know your ideal target audience really well, your customer really well, so that when you have someone like me write the copy for you, we are writing it in their language. So I've talked about this so many times on all the other episodes about how I do the research. I really dig in. And what I like to do for my customers is actually interview their clients, their happiest clients and their happiest customers. Because then when I talk to them, I can get that language and those phrases and things that they use. I even ask them like what hesitations or objections they may have had before purchasing the product or the offer. And we take that all that information and we use it in the copy so that the words that are written, it sounds like it's in the tone of the business owner, but they're saying the words, they're using the language of their clients, so that when their clients land on that page or land on a sales page or their website, they automatically hear themselves in it. They qualify themselves through it because they say, yes, this is exactly what I need. How did she get in my head? This is, So
that effective communication is huge, because you and I, we're different. We're very different in regards to how we think and how we communicate. I'm very experienced. That whole, I remember like the DISC assessment or whatever that was. I was I'm doing it backwards here, but whatever. But I was very on the far end where everything was experiential, context of environment and all these other things, right? Where you're, from your background, just the way your mind works, because you were an architect before. You're very precise. You're like, I don't need the flowery, I don't need the flowery details. I just need the specifics. Give me the exact data points, and maybe we can talk about these other things later. And I found that over the years, and having to shift or having to pivot with certain people. There are some people that they just want very direct communication, and that's cool. And we do have to be. Everybody listening, we're all in sales in some way, shape, or form. We're selling our product, we're selling ourselves, we're selling our experience, whatever it may be. And so we have to learn to pivot to some of these people. And sometimes it's hard because it's just not how we operate, but it is what it is, right?
Yeah, no, that's really good. All right. Well, I want to wrap up our conversation.
Okay. My favorite color is blue. And
what else do you want to tell me?
I like long walks on the beach, and puppies make me cry. No.
You keep it entertaining.
Well, you've signed that, and those people listening, let me tell you, that's how good of a salesman I am. This woman has decided to sign up for an 18th year of membership. Most people's Netflix accounts don't last that long, but I've entertained this woman enough for 18 years. God bless her. But I'm the tough sell in this relationship.
No. People always ask me all the time. They're like, "Is he like this at home?" And what's my answer?
No.
No.
And the answer is because it's like, I've heard all the jokes.
Yeah.
I know exactly what he's going to say. And the funny thing is that a lot of people see me as spontaneous. But you've seen pretty much, it's like Groundhog Day. You've already experienced me for 365 days times 18. I don't know how many total days that is, but you've experienced that. So you're like,
yeah,
I know what the outcomes are going to be. I know what the results are going to be. That's one of the things you love. That's one of the things you love about me is that I'm not going to go tomorrow. You know what? I really feel like we should move to Guatemala. But at the same time, I'm not going to do something wild and crazy. But I am definitely the goofball in the relationship. That's for sure. So I love it.
Yeah,
salt and pepper, meat and potatoes. You got to have both in order for a good meal to happen. So.
Absolutely.
We can shift through that. I don't know. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about? We can throw in the director's cut.
No. Okay. I'm going to ask you just one kind of off the cuff question.
Ooh.
So,
is it officially off the cuff? I'm excited.
Well, it's not written down on my paper here.
Ooh, excellent. Good. Now you're going to see the real Caleb. Here we go. No, I'm kidding.
So we've touched on a lot of different things here. We've talked about how to stand out from your competition. We've talked about attracting the right fit clients and customers into your business. We've talked about what happens when you say yes to everything. So I want you to just give one last piece of advice that you would like to give to our listeners about how to move forward in their business.
Oh man, after 25 years, I've got so many one-liners I could give you. Two. I'm going to give you two. Can I give you two?
You can give me two.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, I'll give a regular one, and then I'll give a bonus one for everybody who wants to stick around for another 3 seconds. Sometimes a quick no is as good as a quick yes. In my business, I find that to be the case. And then the other one that I live by is that the softest pillow at night is a clean conscience. Mm-hmm. Do your business well. Do it right the first time. And you can sleep well at night. So anyway, I don't necessarily think I needed to explain it, but it's a good one. Good. Softest pillow at night is a clean conscience.
Well, tell me, why is a quick no just as good as a quick yes?
Because it would be because we show that we value people's time, right? Like if we languish on saying the no, when we know the answer is going to be no in 5 minutes and we drag it out for a week, that's insulting them. That's insulting their time and their intelligence, right? If we say, you know what, and it also communicates we know what we're about, right? We don't have to sit there and think about it for a week. If your identity, your culture, your whatever is so concrete and solid that you can tell them no in that conversation or in a quick follow-up conversation, that says a lot about you. I mean, we just read a whole book. I'm sure somebody's already written a whole book on saying no, but I'd like to write the sequel called No, Part 2, Electric Boogaloo. So yeah, a quick no, because sometimes you can't, a quick no says you can't deliver. A quick yes says you can deliver, right? But sometimes, I don't know. That part's like I'm going to get myself lost in my own ditch there. So
it's okay.
Do whatever you want with it.
No, those are two very good pieces of advice. So I'm really happy that you joined me here today. It took us a while to kind of get it together to find time in our schedules where we could chat.
We're like ships passing in the wind, sweetheart.
How do you really say that?
Ships passing in the night.
Passing in the night. I know. Last week I said, we're like ships passing in the wind. You corrected me.
And I was shaving and I smiled at it and I go, that's not quite how that goes. But at least you didn't say your ship has finally hit the fan. So it's good.
Okay. Well, when I usually end these episodes, I always ask if people are interested in reaching you, how can they find you? But I don't think we're going to have that in this case because,
reach out to Gina And if you have questions, if you have husbands that are boring and they need some jokes, let me know. I'm happy to give them my dad joke book. It'll be great. It'll keep everything entertaining.
All right. Well, I hope all of you got something from this today. There's definitely some fun banter, and I love to know what you thought about me bringing my husband on the podcast, and if you want him to come back, because we could always do another episode in season 4. So if you guys really enjoyed this, send me an email at gina@whitehousesm.com or go to www.whitehousesm.com to contact me or find me on social media. I am on Instagram and LinkedIn, and you'll see all that information in the show notes. So thank you, babe, for joining us today.
Well, you are welcome, dear. It was my pleasure and reasonable service as your husband.
Thank you so much for spending time with me today on this episode of 7-Figure Copy. If this conversation resonated and you know that your messaging, that your copy is not matching the caliber of the wonderful work that you do, then please reach out to me at whitehousesm.com to book a 30-minute complimentary copy chat. Let's see if we're the right fit for each other and if I'm the right conversion copywriter for you. And I'll see you next time.
This podcast is produced, mixed, and edited by Cardinal Studio. For more information about how to start your own podcast, please visit www.cardinalstudio.co or email Mike at mike@cardinalstudio.co. You can also find the details in the show notes.